you so much. And we are recording. Kelsey will oh, I have to got it. Kelsey will be sharing the recording, and then I know at some point as the SIG website is updated, we'll have that available so that you can access that through the new website that's being developed, as well as any other materials that we share through this group. So for those of you that are new, my name is Ted Burke. I'm a consultant with the Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center. And I'd like to maybe take a few minutes to just do some introductions, and we're a small group, so we can just go around. But as part of the introductions, I want you can pick which icebreaker question you want to do. So giving people options this morning. So the first one is, what book have you been dying to read? If someone were to visit where you live, where would you be sure to take them? Or what's the best thing happening in your life professionally right now? So I will start, as I said before, I'm Ted Burke. I'm with ECTA as a consultant, focused mainly on early intervention, early childhood special education, and I'm part of their personnel topic team. So some of the resources I'm going to share a little bit later are some of the things we're working on related to personnel supports. Because we were talking early when a few people got on, I'm actually from Hawaii. So I will talk about if someone were to visit where I live, where would you most likely take them? Well, Hawaii is unique culturally, and I think a lot of people come here, and I think where a lot of folks go is to go visit the Arizona, which is the ship that was bombed in the day of Pearl Harbor that still sits at the bottom of Pearl Harbor. And that is a great place to visit, a lot of history, but I'm going to go a little bit older history and talk about Iolani Palace, which is a palace that still exists. It's actually in the shadow of our current state capitol, and it's where Hawaii's monarchs were up through the 1890s. Before that was the last monarch, Queen Liliuokalani, was overthrown. And it is rich in history. And if you really want to learn more about what Hawaii was like before colonization, it's a great place to learn. And I would encourage anybody that comes to Oahu to go visit that. So that would be my one place. So anybody else want to share?
I'm happy to go if we're all going.
Sure.
I'm Meg Porcella. I'm from the Vermont SPDIG. I'm the SPDIG director. I would take people to Lake Champlain, to Burlington, Lake Champlain. It's really great view. When you're approaching Burlington, you're up high on a hill and you go down and you can see the bottom of the road just disappears into the lake, and it's really cool when people come here for the first time.
Awesome.
I'll go next, Ted. This is Georgette Nemmer. I'm with the Connecticut State Department of Education. I'm the director of the newly awarded SPDIG grant. If someone were to visit where I live, my top two places are the Mark Twain House in Hartford, Connecticut, where it has been restored beautifully to reflect the decor and furnishings of the Mark Twain, when Mark Twain lived in the house. It's also in the same grounds as the Harriet Tubman House. I'm sorry, Harriet Beecher Stowe. And so it's a lovely little area that is so historic. It just takes you back, and they've built a lovely museum in the last, I want to say 10 years that is fascinating as well. And then the second place I would take people is the 500-year-old plus Pinchot sycamore tree, which is not far from where I live on the Farmington River. And the trunk of the tree is over 25 feet in circumference. It's a beautiful sycamore tree. I don't know if you all have seen sycamores where you are. I just love them, and it's a very special tree, and they're trying so hard to make sure this tree lives another 100, 200, 300 years. And I just find it really inspiring every time I drive by it. So that's where I would take them.
Great. Thanks, Georgette. I see Wendy has her hand up. So Wendy.
Hi, Wendy Trujillo. I am with the South Dakota State Department of Education. I am the administrator for special education programs and dispute resolution coordinator. If someone were to come visit here, I think I would have to take them over to the Badlands and to see Mount Rushmore.
Awesome. All right. Next.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ria Gill. I am the Assistant Deputy Director in the Office of Special Education for the state of New Mexico. Originally from Denver, was a former special education teacher and high school principal, and I was assigned for SPEDIG. My sweet spot is more secondary, but I was assigned to this. If I were to take anyone anywhere in the state of New Mexico, boy, it's hard to choose, but I would say Georgia O'Keeffe's house, the Ghost Ranch.
Thank you. Next.
I can go next.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is Sonia. I can go next. I'll answer two different questions. So I want to introduce a book I've been reading. So I don't know if I had been dying to read this book, but I'm currently reading this book, The End of Average. It's by Todd Rose. So this book talks about how the public schooling started and how the standardization applied to like military and schools and how that's harmful to everyone. And it's really fascinating. And also he talks about kind of special education topics that have a lot of special education implications too. So I highly recommend this book to everyone. And I am dying to finish this book now. I'm working on it. And then if I can answer to one more question, I want to answer the last question, what is the best thing? So I'll say one of the best things happening in my professional life is this art group. I really love this COP. So I just wanted to that feeling with everybody. Thank you.
Awesome.
Hi, everybody. I'm Renee Kleiman. I am also from Connecticut. I'm joining Georgette today as I am the Part B 619 coordinator for our state. So thank you for having me here today with Georgette. And one of the, I think, best things happening in my life professionally is I am coming up on my 1-year anniversary with starting with the State Department of Education. So that's pretty exciting. And I just want to say the tree that Georgette spoke about, it is really incredible. And I did bring family there when they were visiting from Colorado because it is really special. And the Farmington River, I mean, there's just some really beautiful places in Connecticut. And I think also people don't think about our shoreline. And we do have a beautiful shoreline. And then I would also take people to the farm that our family volunteers at because it's a really special place in Connecticut. And I love bringing people there. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
I can go. Hi, everyone. I'm Leslie Christie. I am serving dual roles right now as the new 619 coordinator for the state of Indiana. And then I'm also still maintaining my data specialist duties until we find my replacement, which leads to the best thing happening in my life professionally right now is that I just got promoted. So exciting.
Congratulations.
go next. My name's Amanda Working, and I'm from Virginia. I work with Virginia Tiered Systems of Support, which is is funded by the Virginia SPDIG grant. And I'm an evaluator for it. And being from Virginia, there are a lot of things to visit. It depends if you want historic or, you know, nature or amusement parks. We've got them. I love going to the Natural Bridge, which is just gorgeous there. That was carved out from a river. There's the Luray Caverns. They're gorgeous. I like nature type things. The Blue Ridge Park Drive, and but historically, I like to go to like Monticello. I think it's gorgeous. And
so thank you. I have a few people left.
I'd be happy to go next. My name is Laura Bray, and I'm with the Pennsylvania Department of Education, Special Education. And I am on the director of our State Personnel Development Grant, or SPDIG, and our current one is Success for PA Early Learners, or SPEL. And I will go with the place to visit. I'm located in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So of course, when people come, they want to go to Hershey Park. And I do have young children, and we are there quite a bit. So it's a lot of fun. There's similar to what Amanda was just sharing, though. There's historical, there's outdoor things to do. There's just so much to do in this area. So when people come to visit, we can keep their itinerary very filled, but definitely Hershey Park.
Laura, I have a quick question. This is Jennifer Coffey. What size candy bar are your kids now?
Oh my goodness, they're both they're Twizzlers. They're very happy. They go on all roller coasters. My middle, Catherine, for a while was wearing like platform shoes so that she could get on certain roller coasters. And I was like, this is not safe. Like you
That's
can't,
not what
like,
they
there's
meant
a height restriction for a reason. We don't want you to go flying off the roller coaster. But yeah. Every year we get their pictures as they're going on. And my youngest, Madeline, she just turned 16 months. So she's on like the handheld little ones. But yeah, lots of fun, lots of fun.
Yeah, for those who haven't been to Hershey, you're measured by the different kinds of Hershey candy. So like a Hershey's Kiss, and then there's like a mini, and then, sorry.
Yeah.
So I digress.
Yeah,
Thanks,
no,
Laura.
and it's great. And I will say too, if you ever talk to my children, they'll tell you we're from the sweetest place on earth. So the marketing really worked on them. So there you go.
Love it. Jennifer, you want to go?
That's dangerous for me, you know, because I could go, I'm like Sun Young, I want to answer them all. The cherry blossoms, if you haven't heard, have been in bloom. And we do a picnic every year down by the tidal basin. But also, if you haven't heard, because the water's been rising, they're going to have to do some construction. And so they're taking down the inner rim of the cherry trees. And so everyone's been saying goodbye to Stumpy, which is the most famous of the cherry blossom trees. But they're going to graft him and grow him again. And so I would take you to the tidal basin to say goodbye to Stumpy.
I can go.
Sure.
My name is Molly Tucker. I work for Georgia State University Center for Leadership and Disability, and I was invited by Jody because we're subcontracting through Georgia SPDIG, and we're really sort of leading the Part C part. So thank you guys for having us. Whenever people come to Atlanta, usually we take them to like Centennial Olympic Park, where the aquarium, World of Coke, Human Rights Museum, the Olympic rings, all of that stuff is located. As a Pennsylvanian, though, I have to say, anytime I go home and take someone home, I have to take them to Wawa because they just don't understand what it is. But if you're from the Northeast, you sort of appreciate getting a hoagie at Wawa. So that's always something I do when I go back home. Thanks for having me.
All right, couple more folks.
I can go after Molly. I'm having a hard time with my computer. So can you hear and see me, Ted?
We can.
Perfect. My name is Jody Drum. I'm one of the program specialists here in Georgia. And I'm not sure I would call this a book I've been dying to read, but it is a book I ordered, and I'm hoping that it's going to provide some insight into my life. It's called Atomic Habits. I'm not sure I'm showing it in the right spot, but it's an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. I think that the New Year's resolutions that I set in January seem to not be taking hold. So I'm hoping to have some insight from this book. And I'll add to what Molly said, I would also go to Gibbs Garden. Right now it's beautiful. We have a lovely spring season here in Georgia, and Gibbs Garden is a great place to visit and appreciate all the flowers blooming.
Awesome.
I
Anyone
can go ahead and
else?
go.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lexi Pease, and I'm with the state of Idaho. I'm the program evaluation coordinator. And I'm actually reading a book through one of the SIG Network book studies, which is called Making Numbers Count. And it's been really awesome just teaching you how to make numbers impactful for the audience that you are trying to project your data to, and how to make them into manageable chunks so it can resonate with them and tell a story and have an emotional impact. And so it's been really awesome to read. It's an easy read and it's a fun read too. And the book club has been really awesome to participate in when I can. So
Great. Anyone
I'll
else?
go.
Great.
I'll go after Lexi. I'm also with Idaho. My book is, I've been reading, oh, you can't see it on my phone, Struggling to Learn by June Medding Thomas. I kind of got into history dive. This is the story of the desegregation of the high school that I attended. So that happened maybe 6 or so years before I was born. So that totally dates me. So I'm from South Carolina. I work in Idaho. If I were to take you, I live in Washington State. So like super complicated. So if I were to take you somewhere, I'd probably take you to McCroskey State Park. I like the outdoor stuff that we have here in Idaho. I live 7 miles from Idaho. Beautiful view. Like you have to go up some winding dirt roads to get up there, but it is absolutely worth the trip.
Fantastic. Anyone else?
Good afternoon. I purposely tried to be the last because I think I'm not necessarily one of the group, but I am Ann Smith. I am the executive director of AFCAMP, Parents of Children with Disabilities. We are an IDEA funded parent center. And yay, I'm from Connecticut. I see a lot of our CSD people here. And one of the reasons that I wanted to join was looking at your topic. And we recently became a certified affiliate of the Parents as Teachers Home Visiting Program. And we're working with under the Office of Early Childhood. So I thought that just kind of understanding a little bit more about what CSDE is doing and what SPDIG has planned for early childhood would be of interest. And that's why I joined. And I also am reading that Atomic Habits book. I'm not sure that it has fully changed how I do things, but it's very interesting.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? All right. Well, if folks want to share, who haven't shared, if you want to share in the chat, feel free to do that. And we are going to move on. Whoop. Just a couple resources that ECTA has been working on. One we sent out ahead of time. You're one of the exclusive groups that's seeing this in its draft form. And it is called the Personnel Workforce Component of the systems framework. The system framework is much broader than just personnel. And we reviewed it a little bit at the last meeting, but I'll shoot us to that website here in a second. But the components have been around for over a decade now, and they're there to really support states in looking internally at their systems and identifying strategies to improve them based on quality indicators that we identify that we make part of the components. But we have been for the last year in the process of updating the components. And so we sent this out really hoping to get some input from you. We've also sent it out to Part C coordinators, early intervention coordinators, EI, ECSE folks. We've had some focus groups looking at it from the 619 work group as well as some of our other TA partners like the folks from the ECPCI, and some of the other folks from ITCA and DEC. So I know I'm using way too many acronyms, the Infant Toddler Coordinator Association, ITCA, and the Division for Early Childhood, DEC. My apologies. So we're really looking for folks to just give us some feedback on the new component, which is why we sent it out ahead of time. Part of the reason, and I think one of the main reasons we're updating and revising this component is to be more intentional on embedding some elements of equity throughout the components and reflect what we've learned from our state partners, many of whom have been using these tools for the last decade or more, and trying to guide them at the state level and implementing some systems change. In a previous role, I worked with Early Childhood Personnel Center and worked with 11 states to intensely look at this personnel component and really try and make some impactful change around personnel in these states. And we used the current version of the document. So I think we really want to just improve on what we've learned from states already. Your perspective on this draft, I think, is going to be really valuable for us as we get the final product out there. And you'll see on the top of what we sent out, it says draft for review February 2024, do not disseminate. But what we recognize is for some of the focus groups we've worked with already, people are like, well, can I disseminate it within my own team and, start using it? And I think we're okay with that. I think we just want to acknowledge that there will be a final version that will look differently and hopefully not wholly differently from what you see, but there definitely will be some changes that will be posted on our website once it's up and running. So I'm going to take you to that website right now. Let's see, there we go. So you can see that, as I said before, personnel is just one of the components. It also includes finance, governance, quality standards, accountability, data systems are all other components that are also looking at being revised through our work at ECTA. But how have states really used this? And I think how will it be important to some of the work that you're doing? And I know a lot of your work is really focused around professional development and some of that work. And I think when you look at sort of the getting started place, we do have some nice documents that have been developed over the years of a quick start guide and how to pull groups together to look at this and make sure it's groups that include families, make sure it includes other early childhood partners beyond just early intervention and 619, and bring folks in from Head Start and bring in private providers and whatnot to really look at the system as a whole. But I think I would encourage this from every state, is really do some of the self-assessment components. And we have tools that can self-assess each one of these components. And each one of these components has subcomponents. And under each one of those subcomponents, they have quality indicators. And I think by having a self-assessment done and really looking at where you're at within each one of those indicators, I think can be helpful for you to move forward and identifying, here's the gaps we have right now, and here are the things we think we can work on. And I think that's really helped states who have been trying to use this tool to improve their systems, because when you look at overall all of these components, to tackle them all at once is, I think beyond the capacity of most folks. But if you can tackle some things that there's resources around, that you've identified some resource, that there's a willingness across partners to collaborate. I think those are the things that really help. And we also, as you go through this process, it talks about, and I'm going to just go to using the system framework. It talks about what are some of the considerations that you use. It talks about, pulling teams together. How do you write a written plan to implement some of these components? So I think, and I'm just going to jump out of this here, hopefully get us back to the PowerPoint. No, let's see. This is the part I'm never good at. It's jumping back and forth. So I think as you look at this, I think, take a look at it. Identify if there's things that you think could be helpful to you, or if you have things as you're just looking at the document whole, it's confusing, or you think that could be better clarified. I'd love to get your feedback on that. So that's the first sort of document that we have. The second one is a new webpage that we've been working on. And as I mentioned before, one of the things I focus on is personnel. And as we, I think, all recognize, recruitment and retention in relation to personnel has been a huge issue, especially since COVID. So we've launched, as of March 4th, we threw it up there, a new web resource focusing on recruiting and retaining personnel. It's based on a synthesis that we put together that it's pretty lengthy. It's about 80-page synthesis, but you can download a copy from the website that I'm going to show you where that's at. And then I'm actually just going to jump to the website right now because it'll be easier to explain. As you see, we have the download of the PDF. So if you want to look at the whole synthesis, great. We really tried to curate a lot of the research that was out there, recognizing that some of the research and strategies around ECSE was, to say at best, somewhat sparse. So we did look at the broader early childhood resources and stuff that could pertain and be strategies that can be used in the ECSE world. We did align the strategies in the synthesis with OSEP to track, prepare, retain effective personnel for all initiative. If you remember back from a couple of years ago, when that initiative kicked off. And we identified a number of strategies that states have been using that we've saw as effective strategies, and some are very short-term, and that they looked at, having short-term impact. Others are more long-term and sustainable. So we've tried to break down those. And in this first phase of the website, we've looked at sort of 6 areas, and I'm just going to pull us down to professional learning. So in those 6 areas, we've tried to identify 3 to 5 strategies that you can go and find further information out about, so that you don't have to read the whole synthesis, but it's there if you want to. We've also had this, so it's a downloadable 2-pager or 1-pager, but front and back. So something that if you want to share with folks in your state, easily shareable. So you can see with professional development, we have some examples from California, from Illinois, the KITS program out of Kansas. It's been around for a number of years. That was really an all-encompassing Part C training program for providers. Some things out of Texas and Virginia. This is phase 1, so we've identified, we really wanted to get something up there because we recognize the timeliness of the recruitment and retention problem. But one of the things we are doing, and I'm going to try and get us back to the webpage again. I think I did a better job this time. one of the things we want to do in phase 2 is introduce a tool that you can choose a specific strategy through a searchable database of strategies. We so far have collected, I think it's 138 strategies as of this morning. Whoops, sorry. And you can see in the next bullet, we actually invite you, if you have a strategy that you think has worked well in your state around recruitment and retention, there's a link there that you can add a strategy, and we look at those strategies to see if we want to include it on our phase 2 of our database. And what we hope to do is create something that, for instance, based on funding source, based on size of your state, based on how, who you want it to impact. Is it all providers? Is it a specific group like an early intervention service coordinators or school teachers? So we really want to have this searchable database available. And our goal is to have that up and running by the end of this calendar year. So we're in the process of doing that. So, any questions on those 2 resources before I just give a quick overview of the theory of action? I see your hand up, Wendy, but I think that's from before. All right, well, not hearing any. I think, as we pointed out last time, there is a theory of action that the SPDIG has developed, and it's here on the page, but you can see as you follow along with the theory of action, you know, if the SPDIG develops effective, efficient, evidence-based PD practices, then it will lead to educators choosing effective practices, which will then lead to outcomes for children. But you can also look at, if we also engage with state, local, family, IHE community partners, then professional development will include more effective, efficient teams and data systems. Initiatives from all tiers will leverage those evidence-based practices and then back up to the implementation of choosing those practices, which will then lead to outcomes for children with disabilities that will improve, which is the purpose of the SPDIG. So just, you know, and I know if anybody has anything, I put a Padlet, and if I'm going to throw the link in the Padlet as well. Paste. So just with the 3 questions, is there ways that you could see that any of these resources could help support your state theory of action? Are there any additional supports that you might need to successfully implement these or other strategies or activities? Or are there any bright spots happening? So I don't know if anybody wants to take a minute or 2 just to throw it out, or I encourage you to put it on the Padlet. I want to give Georgette enough time for her presentation, so I'm going to limit this to maybe like a minute of feedback. So.
This is Sun Young Ted. I think your explanation of the systems framework and personnel component was so helpful. I mean, as looking at the subcomponents, I think about what we do at OSEP. The subcomponents addresses everything we do for personnel and professional development in OSEP too. So I'm hoping that that's helpful for everyone in this room too. And I was going to say, my question for the group was, I have been emailing the draft personnel component to several people. Is there anyone who doesn't have it yet? I also posted in the chat. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone has access to the draft document.
Yeah, and we're...
You can raise your hand if you don't have access to the document. Just let us know.
Great. And we're taking probably at least the next month to continue to refine it. So you have some time to work on that and give feedback. So, and I'm probably being generous with the month. It probably will be longer than that, but I'm hoping. So, well, at this point, feel free to continue to use the Padlet and answer those questions and give your feedback. But I am going to stop sharing because Connecticut is going to share a little bit of what they've been doing around their theory of action and how some of it relates to the system component resources that I just shared. So, Georgette, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Let's see. I think you all can see my screen. Ted, can you give me good? Thanks for that. And I just want to acknowledge my colleague, Renee. So Renee and I met this morning and we went through this, and we work very closely with the Office of Early Childhood, which is a separate agency from the Connecticut State Department of Education. So obviously we work on Part B, Office of Early Childhood is Part C, but as you all know, those of you who work in early childhood, those two parts of the education continuum are inextricably linked. And I think that's what we're about to share with you here in this presentation. So there are 3 major goals in our state personnel development grant. The largest by far in terms of the heavy lift of the work is really the one that we're focusing on elementary ed math, and that is to increase educator capacity related to IEP quality and progress monitoring. And we're doing this through really working in the districts, providing a coaching model based on Jennifer Pierce's work and Kim St. Martin's work in that coaching book that they've beautifully written. But we're also bringing in Sarah Powell from University of Texas at Austin to really work on research validated math and strategies. So this is a huge component. We've been meeting with our 5 cohort districts that are starting this year, and then we will add on 10 more districts in the 25-26 school year. But I will keep going because that's not the focus of our discussion today. The second goal, which relates to the standards around the early childhood systems framework components, is really around prep and aligning the special ed prep programs to our state expectations around really ready for the classroom day one of all special educators, understanding IEP quality and all that brings to the role and responsibilities of a special educator, pre-K through grade 12 and transition and beyond. So again, that's not the focus of the conversation today. Goal 3, however, is the focus for our presentation today, and that is to strengthen the transition process for children from birth to 3 to pre-K special ed, which is the Part C to Part B component. And so this work hasn't really begun in earnest. We haven't really formulated our stakeholder groups. We haven't begun surveying or designing, but we'll talk a little bit about that in terms of our action plan. I wanted to start off, I don't know those of you who are reading the Making Numbers Count. So here are some numbers that relate to this group and this discussion and this topic of early childhood and birth to 3 and pre-K special ed and special ed in general. Any thoughts on what these numbers represent? You can call it out. You can put it in the chat. Doesn't matter. Feel free. Take a guess. No guessers? No risk takers? All right. So the numbers really represent the state context. And we've, of course, a population of 3.6 million, much smaller than some of the states on the call today, but perhaps equal to some of the other states on the call today. We have a total of 81,000 students with disabilities in K through 12, but our number of students in pre-K special ed ages 3 to 5 is 6,700. So about 88,000 total students with disabilities pre-K through grade 12. So, but for us and our work in SPDIG, we are looking at two of these numbers intensely, and that is the number of students referred from birth to 3 to special ed, and the number of parents refusing pre-K special ed after coming from birth to 3. So these numbers represent opportunities for us to improve the process, and that's really what we have tried to structure in our grant proposal, and then of course our theory of action and our activities and evaluation. These are the two objectives under our goal 3, which is the improving birth to 3 to pre-K special ed transition. Number 1, or 3.1, is increasing the capacity of personnel, so personnel development, personnel training, and specifically around the IFSP and improving the quality of that as we've received feedback from the field. Have we done like hard quantitative research on this? No, but we have some pretty good anecdotal feedback from our LEAs on this. And so it's a recognized concern, and that's really our first objective. The second one is really to help the parents, especially those who refuse pre-K special ed, to better understand, especially if they're second language families, to understand the transition process to make informed decisions. So our plan is to train with our Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center interpreters whom the districts can request to go in and be part of the transition conference from birth to 3 to pre-K special ed, and really be part of the PPT1 and PPT2 with the parents' second language, non-English speaking families. And we actually have family resource centers in Connecticut that are already doing this. And what we're doing is really kind of replicating some of that process to make it available statewide. So back to our IFSP concerns. This is just 2 of the sections out of our IFSP. The link at the top gets you to that form. You can easily find it if you just Google Connecticut birth to 3 forms. You'll find the IFSP. And so as you can see here from just these screenshots of these 2 sections, much of the data is, what do you think? What is this data right now that you're looking at? Any idea of what you see? Does it relate to what you're doing, what your IFSPs include? That your birth to 3 providers develop with the families?
Georgia, Beth says transitions in the chat.
I need to put the chat up so I can see that. Beth, I don't know the answer to that. So I don't know, Renee, the intersectionality with 549, I don't know what that means, or Beth, maybe you can come on and explain your question.
The 549 was the number of parents who refuse. A couple of us had questions about that.
Point. Got it.
Yeah, so you had
Yes.
549, but
Yes.
that I think transitions is the activity not being it's not a plan. It's what are you seeing now, not the
Right. So this is really about routines that the birth to 3 provider asks and works with the parent about to support the student and train the parent to help address those areas of concern that the parent sees on a day-to-day basis, or the family caregiver, whoever that may be. So Renee, I don't know if you want to share anything else. I'm not giving you the entire form, but much of it is similar to what you're seeing here on the screen. So our problems of practice. And these are really kind of just distilled from, again, anecdotal information. We haven't really surveyed the field about this, but that is our intention, is to do some surveying of key people in birth to 3, in pre-K special ed, family representatives. So we will be collecting data directly about what we have perceived to be some of these concerns. And so under the IFSP, I'm not going to read these to you, but in general, I'm just going to categorize it that what we're seeing is the form itself and the data on the form doesn't really contribute and inform the IEP referral and eligibility process, doesn't provide data that can be really used in the evaluation or eligibility determination process, or lead to measurable goals and objectives that will be embedded in the IEP. From the parent perspective, the challenges really relate more to helping parents understand what's in the IFSP. Has it been explained to them? Do they understand the lexicon used, the language used? And then when they come up against the IEP, it is drastically different from what's in the IFSP. So very big challenges. And another one that I think contributes to the number of students or parents who decide not to enroll students in pre-K special ed is really lack of understanding of the implications of either eligibility or non-eligibility. And, so some of the students are medically diagnosed with certain disabilities, but may not qualify for pre-K special ed. So because their delays don't necessarily rise to that level. Then finally, from an LEA perspective, I think that because everyone is experiencing, all states, all districts, experiencing shortages everywhere, the process of referral and evaluation is extremely burdensome and taxing on, as a process itself. And so the challenge of having to redo, require additional evaluations, and then create a robust, high quality IEP is solely on the district. And so some of the issues relate to what does the IFSP contribute to that process. So we need to really find more data on that, but also for the purpose of helping parents and continuing to help parents, those who are in the process or accept and enroll their students in pre-K special ed, what are some of the ways we can continue to support them at home? And so there are a couple of options, so we have indirect services that a district can offer them to continue to provide parent training. They can also offer and connect them to family resource centers, which many of our districts do have, and some are so wonderful and have robust programs to continue to offer parents. But, these are conversations we have yet to have with the field. So my question to all of you is, what do you and your school districts report about the birth to 3 to pre-K special ed transition process? We'd love to learn from you in terms of whether you've posed these questions, whether you are evaluating these processes or not. And then if there was one thing you could change about your IFSP, what would that be? So feel free to take a minute, put that in the chat, or unmute and share. So I'd love to hear from all of you in terms of your experiences. We're just beginning this process, so we're just formulating a game plan, if you will, on how we're going to initiate collecting data, design our professional development, and so forth. So don't be shy. Please feel free to share, those of you who have dug into your own systems, Part B and Part C, or Part C to Part B. I'm going to pick on Meg since Meg comes from Connecticut anyway. Meg, what are you working on in Vermont, and does it relate to this?
So I'm actually trying to find our our Part C is done by the Vermont Agency of Human Services. And so I don't know what our ISFP looks like. And so I was actually trying to find it online right now while you were talking. I do know that part of our CSPD is the transition from C to B. But I think that the challenges that we have in Vermont are different um, uh, than what Connecticut is facing. Mainly, we're trying to implement standardized practices using the pyramid model of practices for infants and toddlers, and then up into pre-K. And so our SPDIG is getting those pyramid model practices, the early MTSS framework, into the hands of our early interventionists and our and the other infant toddler personnel. So, but I am trying to find out. I don't know what it looks like, and I just made an assumption that it looked the same as our other IEPs, just developmentally different. So you're asking me a great question.
Anyone else want to share? If there are any challenges in your transition process, we'd love to hear about it. If you don't want to share now and it comes up later, we're happy to jump on a call with you, really talk through, your context, our context. For us, it's concerning, and one of the other hats that I wear at the State Department of Ed is that I appoint surrogate parents to children who are under the guardianship of our Department of Children and Families. And so we do see a number of children who are a little above 2, going into 3, who've gone traumatic events and under, state guardianship, who need surrogate parents. And so for us, this is bigger than just the system in place for families, the intact families. It's also about our children in foster care and how it can improve the process for them, especially if we don't get the referrals before age 3. So there are just a lot of levels to these concerns that we are trying to address through this work.
Thanks so much, Georgette.
I just wanted to share one other thing, Sun Young. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to share that. So this is kind of right now where we are at in terms of the professional learning, that we want to build some asynchronous training modules for our birth to 3 providers, work with our Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center on the transition process, train interpreters. And then finally, this is the set of partners we're working with, including AIR, ACT is the grant evaluator, Office of Early Childhood, CPAC is the Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center, our RESC Alliance, which are regional service centers that do have birth to 3 programming, and they do provide birth to 3, as well as a whole series and a whole group of private providers. And then the USAID Center that is also very involved in the early childhood personnel development work. And then finally, you asked me to look at the ECTA components. And what I'll say to you is, in terms of this work around our transition process, where I see the connection is in number 1 and in number 4. And those are the subcomponents that I see connect this work. So aligning our state early intervention system, preschool special ed, is obviously a major goal for us. And then developing in-service personnel development training and coordinating across the early childhood contexts and all of the different stakeholders that will be involved in this work. So with that, I just want to say thank you. I hope this was helpful to all of you, and glad to have some more conversations if any of you want to do so.
Thanks so much for sharing. Yes, go ahead, Sonia.
No, I just wanted to thank Georgette. I think this was extremely helpful, and I just wanted to highlight the process. Georgette, Connecticut's project is in year 1, so they just started. But I just wanted to highlight their process. Georgette is SEA person, but she also speaks Parsi language, I can tell. And she's here with her Parsi partner, the Parent Center partner, and I think you can see that they have a great coordination and collaboration. And I think that's a great starting point. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
Well, I know we only have like a minute or so left, so, but what a robust discussion in Georgette, and there's some great resources. There's actually some asynchronous training that already exists that was done by multiple states a few years ago around transition. So I think those are some resources that I think might be helpful to you and the other states as well that we can share. But our next meeting is in May. And at this point, I don't know, maybe we'll get something out to the group because I don't want to keep you beyond the time, but we'll get something out to talk about what we want to focus on. And we could do a deeper dive on transition, or we could focus on some other topics as well as that you guys had identified. So hopefully this was a great call for everyone, and we got some good resources and some good travel tips as well, and book ideas. So I appreciate, I look forward to seeing all of you in May. Sun Young, I don't know if you have any final comments before we let folks go.
No, I'll just let folks go, and just email us if you have any topics you want to suggest for our May meeting. So take care, everyone. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.